Title of this video is Astrology Update for today, the 8th of June 2024. So, what's going on with these planets? With all this Gemini, stellium, my goodness. I don't know if you ever checked actually into the astrology. I recommend that you check Astrodienst, astro.com, because I've never seen so many planets in the same sign of Gemini ever before. We have Sun, Venus, Mercury, Jupiter, and the Moon until yesterday on the new moon at 18 degrees of Gemini in Gemini. And you know, people think, oh, it's just a new moon. It's just for 5 minutes. But I feel the Gemini energy. You would be mistaken. You see, the new moon and the full moon, these are just milestone markers to show you a cycle. Cycle does not start with a new moon. You think it does, but it does not. The cycle has already been playing out at least 1 week before the new moon. And it will continue 1 week afterwards, 14 days, until the next full moon, which will be actually in 14 days. So, it's very important to understand what this means. Gemini is very restless energy. Gemini is nervous system. Gemini is overthinking. Gemini is stealing, accidents, mishaps, miscommunication, misunderstanding, word battles, debates, arguments. Gemini is restless leg syndrome. Gemini is when you get spaced out, like ADHD. Gemini is when you lose mind-body coordination. Gemini is also music, singing. So I'm actually getting a music gift. Ironically, I do actually get a gift with the Sun conjunction Venus, which is unsurprising in Gemini. And Gemini also rules psychic communication, channeling, divine insights. And these divine insights often involve something very temporary, something that helps you for a short time to teach you lessons, to fix your problems, because Mercury is a problem solver. On top of that, it's all about learning and studying, which is why I've been advertising so much for my course lately. But you know, the problem with this Gemini energy is it is very ungrounded. It's very disconnected from the body. So when you have this stellium in Gemini, you want to ground as much as possible. You want to slow down, watch your movements, because it's extremely easy to be restless or unreliable or mess something up, to make mistakes. I actually had 3 sessions in 1 day on the new moon yesterday, and I wrote the line wrong, the first line of a PDF I was writing, and I was like, bro, I've done 200 PDFs plus and I never wrote this wrong. And then I wrote this wrong, and I'm like, why? Well, if I'm distracted all day and I'm doing things non-stop, it's possible to just make a mistake, obviously. And this is actually what happens with Gemini. So if you're committing to something or if you're doing some work, be careful, because it's very easy to make mistakes. Gemini is the energy of a student. It's not the energy of somebody who is mature, grounded, reliable. It's somebody who is like a child. And this childlike energy, it can even make you flirt when you don't actually want to flirt. Like, I've actually had stories of people saying, oh, I've been using these words, I don't know, this is out of my character. Because Gemini is a very unpredictable, flighty energy. You can say words that aren't really your words. Like, you can suddenly call somebody a sweetheart when you don't even think that they're a sweetheart. So why are you saying it? Just because you want to play with words. It's very superficial energy. So any dating, any love letters you get at this time, don't fall for it. Please don't. And also, Gemini is very typical energy for cheating. You know, if somebody cheats on you, or if somebody's avoiding communication or withdrawing. Now, if all of these planets are highlighting communication problems, you know, you're thinking, oh, it's the sun Venus. Venus is so good for me. It must be something good happening here. Don't fall for it. You may get a gift. Something good could happen, absolutely. But it's not what you expect. Because Gemini is very double. You know, on one hand, good things are happening, but then something is also happening over here. Something good here, something not so good here. Two angels. One black, one white. Gemini represents angelic frequency. But it's very ethereal, very high, and it can often be very disconnected from what is really happening around you, and there's often a need to distract yourself. And the need to distract yourself simply comes from the fact that whatever you're dealing with, you don't really want to deal with it, or you can't deal with it. Gemini is very typical for emotional problems. Withdrawing, avoiding, ignoring, all of these shitty things that are completely contrary to me, which is the next sign, Cancer. Before we get into the sign of Cancer, we have to deal with this very anti-emotional energy. You know, Cancer is about when your needs are met, when you create a home, and you finally can settle. And guess what happens in the zodiac? The sign fixes the previous sign's main problem. So the Cancer mastery is the Gemini pitfall. Cancer is very good at grounding, being emotionally stable. Gemini is not. Okay. It's very interesting actually to know this, because it's just the energy, like what you do. Of course, it also means that there's a lot of mental energy and mental capacity going on. So it's very good for exploring. New opportunities could come up at this time, and you should use them. You should do a lot of communication if possible, because it can make you new connections that are very fruitful. You know, the Sun is conjunction Venus in Gemini, so make as many friends as possible. Something good is sure to come. This is a time to socialize, not to really stay at home. Literally, like, there could be bad things happening at home. I've heard horror stories the past 2 weeks, you know, when this Mars was in a conjunction with Chiron and the Moon together in Aries. It's a very bad time to be grounded. So this energy wants you to get out, explore, move around. And I've been feeling this, you know, recently. I've had so much energy. I've been feeling like I just want to wander, just walk outside and just get stimulated by what I see, what I perceive. Gemini. In astrophysiognomy, Gemini makes this with the eyes. It makes it like Asian eyes or something. Because Gemini is like curious, wants to see everything. So Geminis have this tendency, they are always looking around and just getting pleasure through what they see, what they perceive. And this is, of course, very much in tune with the Sun conjunction Venus. So it's very important that you engage with pleasure at this time to ground yourself, so that your mind isn't constantly wandering off and going somewhere else, which is very likely to happen, unfortunately. But of course, it's also an uncommitted energy. So even though it was a new moon, starting a commitment on the new moon, it can work, but make sure it has to do with Gemini. Make sure it has to do with music, art, or study, or school, or learning. And if you do that, it will be a full success, because Sun is conjunction Venus, of course. So all this energy wants you to study, wants you to learn something new, wants you to be curious. If you're just sitting at home, doing nothing, it's going to ruin everything for you. You need to be moving, to be proactive. This is very masculine air energy. And I'm not a fan of very much air energy. Not get me wrong, I have a lot of air in my chart, very air, which is why I communicate so much in my videos. But it's Vata, and Vata dries you. Vata, it makes you skinny. It boosts up the metabolism. It makes things go. It makes things drain out of your system. And this is why it's also very likely to affect your health in some kind of a way. And generally speaking, air doesn't have positive effects on the health. Which is why I also heard of multiple people who were sick at this time, have some kind of issues, like a cold or a flu, or just feeling weird, because it's just the energy. There's so many things you can say of what could possibly happen to you, but primarily look at the house that Gemini occupies at 18 degrees of your chart, because that's where energy is going to sit for the next 14 days. If you don't understand how new moons, full moons work, look at the time of a new moon, the full moon, look at the degree, look at the house in your chart and the degree, 18 degrees of Gemini. Assume that the next 14 days will be that energy of that house primarily. And if not the next 14 days, then the previous 14 days. If you get to a full moon, you can also check, like online, what is the next full moon going to be? Because the next full moon, whatever house it occupies, around the time of a full moon, a week before and a week after, it's going to focus on that area of your life. Not just the 3 days of a new moon, full moon. No. 7 days before, 7 days after. And of course, because the moon moves so quickly, 2 days and it's out, you're thinking, just 2 days of being in that house? No. Absolutely not. So for example, I had this new moon in my 12th house, conjunction Black Moon Lilith. Which is why I've been talking about Lilith a little bit more lately. But also, I had a lot of insights about my unconscious, things releasing, many things changing. It's a complete change of a lot of trauma I've been carrying in my unconscious around this new moon. Just completely getting out of my system. But while everything was removed, the 12th house is the house of draining things and ending things, it was very painful. It's not nice. It's very uncomfortable when you work with your subconscious and you go in there. So depending what house it is in, can be a comfortable new moon or a not so comfortable new moon. If it's in a malefic house, like the 12th, the 6th, the 8th, it's very unlikely that you're going to enjoy it. It's just not likely to happen. I'm sorry, not sorry. If, however, the new moon is in the 5th house, or the 3rd house, or the 11th house, these are very nice houses. Good things always happen in these houses. So it's also important to understand that there is such a thing as good and bad in astrology, and you can absolutely 100% accurately predict if you're going to have a good time or a bad time. Which is important, actually. Now think about it. Imagine you are invited to a bad party. Like, there's people that you don't like, the food sucks, the scenery is not that great. It's a bad party, but you still go there. Now, because it's a bad party, you're already prepared. You're ready. So you're going into a party like, I don't expect anything from this. I'm just going to try to bide my time, make the best of it, but no expectations. So, no disappointments. And if something bad happens, you're like, I saw that coming. So it's not going to be that bad. It's not going to hit you that hard. Maybe, because you knew it was going to be bad, You may even avoid disaster. You may even avoid mistakes and crises. So it's very useful, you know. If you know it's going to be a good party and you're already preparing for it, you can enjoy it even more. So either way, just knowing what is going to happen is extremely useful. Also, if you know that, for example, if like the new moon was now, was conjunction Venus, you know it's going to be about relationships. So you're already looking at your relationships, you're like waiting, like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And when it happens, and you're like, I knew it would happen. So then there's no trigger, there's no surprise, there's no shock. It's like, you're already prepared. Like, imagine that everything in your life, you already see it coming, at least a little bit. Of course, not exactly, but you know the theme of what's going to happen. So, you're like a magician. You're walking into things just exactly on that frequency, exactly aligned, just knowing how it's going to play out, and nobody can sneak up on you. Nobody can exploit you, but you already know it's going to happen. Like, you know what I mean? You can avoid so many problems if you know what's happening. But what if you are clueless? What if you're like, don't know what's going to happen next? Meanwhile, maybe you are depressed, things are not working out so well, and you're thinking, what about tomorrow? Is it going to be bad tomorrow too? But when you have this amazing transit, let's say you have like the Sun in Leo conjunction Jupiter, or like we had recently, Sun Jupiter conjunction just a week ago. And you're thinking, something good is coming. And you're already trying to go into that flow. You're studying the planets. Okay, how do I get good with that planet? Okay, Jupiter is travel, and then Leo is this and that, so I will go into these activities. And then you go into these activities, and of course, because you knew how this works, it's working out, and it's giving you great benefits, because you're aligned with energy. But what if you are not aligned with energy? Which is most people, by the way. What if you have no idea where you are in time, or what's happening, or what this means, or what that means, and you're like, oh, everything is just happening to me, and I don't know why? It's very disempowering. It's extremely disempowering to have no clue why something is happening. So, yeah, it's interesting. I don't know why this video took this turn, but I guess I got taken over by this human energy. All of this. Interesting. You know, this Gemini is in my 12th house. I have my Mercury there. Mercury is very close now. Now that I'm making this video, the Sun is at 19 degrees of Gemini. It's conjunction my Mercury Lilith. Because normally it means that there's a lot of communication happening at this time, but where is the communication really coming from? How does the communication work? You know, it's in my 12th house. And the 12th house is really just like, I don't know. Like, I'm just blabbering, basically. Literally. But yeah, let's see. You know, the next full moon will be in 13 days. Will be, of course, in Capricorn. So, if that happens, the energy is going to be very, very different from this one. We're all working to get more grounded and establish our career so that in the month of July, we can settle. Because then the new moon after that is of course going to be in Cancer, and that is literally just the opposite energy of whatever is going on right now. And that's good to know, because what you're feeling right now, if you're thinking, oh, how long am I going to feel this, it's extremely temporary. I highly doubt that it's gonna last longer than a week from now. So if you find this helpful, if you'd like to have a personal reading or a consultation, check out my services down below. If you like this video, please leave a like and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching, and see you in the next video.